Guys, welcome back to TCI headquarters. We are going to see if we can get through this video talking a little bit about the disaster that happened Saturday in Death Valley, then the little emotional change later in the day. And the good news is Dabo came in, he was happy as a lark today. I haven't seen him that happy in a long time. He's like, what do y'all complain about? Aren't y'all glad y'all are here today? And he's so excited to be in this
He said
ACC
he's glad that he
championship
ruined
game.
people's vacations and everything.
He's all fired up, and he's a little, I don't know, we'll see what the fans' reaction is to some of the early comments, but he was trying to get everybody excited, and,
As they should.
he's got another chance.
Yeah.
And like he said, he's like, we control our destiny, and
Again.
if we meet our goals and win the ACC and win the final game, we'll be national champs.
That's right. And he's accurate. That's totally accurate.
That is 100% accurate. Can he do it? But
Yeah.
they got a chance.
That is the system we play in now.
That is the system.
He told Chapel, state newspaper, Chapel says, just to get a little more serious. That was I am serious, Chapel. I thought that was the best part of the whole press conference, other than him ragging me.
Well, no, the best part was...
Or when he asked Don if he was drunk.
The best part was when Don Munson asked him a question, he said, what have you been drinking?
I told, by the way, I told Don, you asked the same thing.
Yeah. John tried to ask, well, y'all can win the ACC and still get left out of the playoff. And he say, oh, no. So
Don was still staying on that after it was over too.
Yeah, so was Brian. Brian was, and I think that's where Don got it from. Because technically, yes, but no, it's not. It's like 99.9% chance that's not going to happen.
that's not going to happen. If you beat a top 7 or 8 SMU team,
you're in.
yes, you're going to be.
Nobody's going to be up above you on that as far as a group of 5.
Let's talk a little bit about the game before we dive into the stuff. I know you guys had dueling podcasts last night. I mean, there were 2 hours of these guys. I'm sorry, guys.
Well, it's 2 hours of JP. It was an hour and a half of me.
It was almost 3 total, actually.
Right, 3 hours. So hopefully
went
y'all
way
listen
long.
to some of that. If not, we'll have a replay of JP's up on the site today. But I always find them on YouTube and Twitter and all that good stuff. But we talked last week. I don't know about you guys. I felt more and more confident as the week went along last week that Clemson was going to come in there and take care of business.
Yeah.
During the game, it's like, okay, Clemson, better team.
Clemson's in control.
They got the game in control, very similar to 2 years ago. You get it in control, and then you blow it in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody focuses on, obviously, I'm sure this guy's going to talk about Sammy Brown in that decision, although you probably talked for an hour and a half on that last night. But
We did.
even with the terrible no tackling, blah, 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 the defense gave up 17 points.
Yep. Second lowest South Carolina scored all year.
You got to be able to score more than that, Clemson. So that game, I guess where I'm headed is the blame for that game goes offense, defense, coaches. I'll blame all of them.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Oh, it was a total failure on both sides of the ball, particularly the coaching staff.
Yeah. I don't understand a lot of the things the coaches did, especially when you go back and watch it and you look at certain play calls on offense. Like,
You went back and watched it? You could stomach that?
yeah, I know it's hard to stomach, but you got to do it, right?
Not doing this. I don't got to do
But
it.
when you go back, you see the certain play calls and you kind of shake your head like. It's harder when we're in the stadium and we're working to kind of get a grasp of that. But when you watch on TV, you can see why some of the fans were upset with the play calling on offense. And then I still don't get the Sammy Brown thing to this day. I was asked earlier, like, why didn't you ask about Sammy Brown? I'm like, because we asked about it post game and we asked about it Sunday night, and I think Dabo said the same answer both times. So I was like, he's obviously not going to give us a better answer than that. So there was no sense in asking it a third time. But
Well, you and I have talked about it off the record. I don't think that was the reason.
No, I don't think so either.
Oh, no.
I think either there was something else that went on the sidelines, or somebody said something to somebody.
Maybe that's the only thing I can
Or
figure.
Dabo was trying to not throw fire at West because something else may be coming.
That's right. Yeah.
So there may be other things involved. Dabo is known to, kind of like a lot of our politicians today, to say something so many times that he tries to make it. That's the truth, because we keep just saying it. Not always the case. So we don't know. That's speculation. But regardless, it was just plain stupid.
Right. All I do know is Sammy Brown was sitting right beside Wes Goodwin the entire fourth quarter.
In his back pocket.
Basically begging them to come into the game.
Fastest linebacker on the team, only guy, or the one guy out there that if he's near him, he's going to make those
Exactly.
tackles.
Yeah.
He didn't play the whole fourth quarter, still led the team in tackles.
Yeah. He played 4 snaps of South Carolina's 23. He played 4.
So there's, I don't know, coaching malpractice or something.
That is exactly what I called it last night.
You
Coaching
did.
Did you?
malpractice.
He did.
That's just
exactly what he called it.
very similar, and you'll go write this. You'll be able to give the name, the date, and the weather on when it happened. Very similar to a game where they refused to use a particular Clemson running back down the stretch and lost a game in South Carolina.
2006 Reggie
Did you
Miller.
talk about that last
I
night?
did.
He
I
did.
Yeah.
It's just what do you do? What do
It's
you do?
also a bright, sunny day in the Valley, and it was a noon kickoff. So, I think Clemson needs to stop playing South Carolina noon kickoffs in the bright sunshine. If it's not overcast, they need to move it tonight, because Clemson is 2-5-1 against Carolina in bright, sunny games in Death Valley. They're 4-1 in overcast games during the daytime.
Well,
so they need to play
I'll
that
give you
game in
this,
overcast.
and I agreed with the guy. One of the local TV anchors came up to me on the sideline walking into the locker room and said, "This is the deadest Clemson South Carolina game I've seen. I can't believe this is the rivalry game and it's so dead in here." Now in the second half, because of some of the officiating,
It got
the
loud.
crowd got more into it and it got a little bit louder. But that first half, had it been a night game,
I think they needed
I think
to
it
wake up.
would have been different.
Yeah, I think I heard some South Carolina fans say how thankful they was it wasn't a night game, because Clemson got louder in the second half and it became more of a home field advantage, and I think that was part of it. And I think it's disappointing that this game wasn't a night game. I think ESPN really dropped the ball that they had Florida State on at night, but it still was a good rating game for ESPN. It was that noon slot, and it was the most watched game other than Ohio State, Michigan. So it was it served its purpose for
That's
ESPN.
why they put it there.
That's why they put it there.
Let me say this, and this is again total speculation. Let's hope this game is not remembered as the last time the fans got to meet at the Paul after a game.
Unfortunately, I think it might be.
It absolutely might be because of what went down after the game here and across the country. And Dabo was in the middle of it, and we have videos on Twitter of players doing things they shouldn't to fans and all that afterwards.
Yep.
It's going to be interesting to see if that ends that great tradition.
I think it will, and once again, South Carolina kills the Clemson tradition. That's just, I think it will end, and I think it needs to. We've kind of been saying it needed to for years. Let's be honest, because we were worried about something like could break out and happen, and boy, it nearly did the other day. It was pretty bad, and just go like you said, go look at the videos. They're all out there, and people were being antagonistic toward Clemson players.
No.
And and they were basically trying to get them to punch them, and that's just, you can't put your players or the fans in those situations. You got to separate it, and I think it's time.
And if you do that, then maybe you can make sure some of the other things that happened on the field and other places in the stadium
Don't happen again.
afterwards don't happen, because you've
Yeah.
got the security people to make sure those things don't happen.
Exactly, and that was unfortunate too. And so I that's on my podcast as well, as I talked about that and called out some.
Man, I'm going to have to go watch his podcast.
Yeah, it was that part was pretty fiery.
That's not happening.
North Korean propaganda.
Yeah, so I'm being called out by a certain fan base.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, you should be. Get them. Emails at... I won't give you his email.
I'm right though. I'm sorry. I'm right. That's not how you act in public.
It will be unfortunate to see that tradition come to an end, but we just live in a day and age where when you continue to allow that many people on the field after a game, you're just kind of asking for trouble. It's coming at some point.
Yeah, you need to go ahead and nip it in the bud now.
Yeah, and the other problem is just the security issues that creates in the world we live in today with all the nutcases out there. You're just asking for something to happen.
Exactly.
And
you are.
it's not like you got armed guards out there guarding the
you got
field
those-
and the hill and stuff. It's just your average Joe working a 9-to-5 job looking to make a few extra bucks, or a lot of them anyways. You know, they're not gonna. There's not a whole lot they can do to stop it.
No, so that's something that we may be talking about 20 years from now, saying, "Well, remember that game that killed that?" I'm gonna go one more topic, and then we'll go back.
Hold on,
to
are we going to be talking about this 20
You
years?
are 20 years from now. You too. I'm gonna be. Who knows? I'll be long gone. The ACC came out with some emails about the other schools that had altercations after the game.
Virginia Tech.
The one, and maybe I've missed it,
Yeah.
but the one thing I haven't seen yet is the ACC coming out suspending players
Mm-hmm.
or inferring that maybe teams shouldn't play in the postseason. Have we seen that this week?
No, we haven't seen
Did
that.
I miss that?
No, we haven't seen that.
Okay. Did
Yeah.
we see that in 2004, 2000, whatever?
We did, but wasn't that self-imposed? By
It was
Clemson?
self-imposed, but it was very leaned on.
Yeah, good point.
I
And
vaguely remember that.
The
Yeah.
suspensions were not self-imposed; those came from the league.
That's true.
The players
That's true.
involved were
So
suspended.
your point's valid. So players that are coming back next year, they're going to be suspended.
Yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
seen anything about suspensions from any of.
Now
those
they're not going to take away the bowl
altercations.
games now because the bowl games is at too much money now.
But
than
that,
it was
well, that's
back
what I'm saying.
before.
It's just another case of, a little bit different treatment.
Virginia
I
suspended.
can promise you, if Clemson had that yesterday,
Yeah.
with their situation with the league right now, you think things would be different?
I wouldn't disagree with that. Even though the league did help us today with getting somebody else in, so the president won't go too far.
Robert. Well, in the league, and Will, you wrote on this week, and actually had some evidence we were able to obtain about how the league really stuck up last week for the ACC teams, and we saw that in the rankings last week that it worked.
It did, and we saw yesterday Mark Packer came out and really just ripped Paul Feinbaum and ESPN for, just saying that Miami was, what was Feinbaum's quote? I can't remember, but basically a fraud. And so Feinbaum says, okay, so if Miami's a fraud, is Alabama a fraud? Because Miami lost to a good Georgia Tech team by, so many points, and then they lost to a really good Syracuse team by so many points.
Okay, where did he say all this?
On the ACC network.
On the Spurtle Network?
Again, thank you ACC for helping us this week.
No. And I wasn't trying to throw that. I wasn't throwing that at the ACC.
No, I know.
And the ACC would agree with me on this. Mark Packer ought to be on ESPN saying that.
Yes.
He ought to have
But they won't put him on.
He ought to have the avenue to be on ESPN to defend the ACC and not have the ESPN be so biased towards SEC.
Now, the good news the ACC did, though, is they put that on all their social media. So all their social media is in
Right.
it. And so a lot of people are going to see it because, people retweet it, whatever, and you know how all that stuff works. So that's the good news for it. But it's like ridiculous, to think about, how first of all, again, kudos to the ACC doing what they did, and they'll probably do it this week because this week's big for Clemson, get into the rankings for tonight. It's big for Clemson because where's Clemson going to be ranked? And if they do win, do they get in position to where, because the ACC wants Clemson, their champion, to get the automatic
It's
bid.
big on whether you get a bye or not.
Yeah.
Have a shot.
Absolutely. And so where Clemson's ranked compared to Arizona State and Iowa State, it's going to be big tonight.
Yep.
And
if you're a Clemson ACC fan, go UNLV. Pull hard Friday night for the
pull hard for UNLV.
Rebels.
Yeah.
Running Rebels.
Because if UNLV wins, then it's a moot point, and then no matter what, the winner of the ACC championship is going to get a bye. So, but Dabo was really kind of coy about all that today, wasn't he? I mean,
Dabo
he was in a good mood.
was in a good mood, and we talk sometimes about how we infer how his mood translates to the play on the field. It doesn't
Yep.
always work, but
More often than not.
there was a chip on the shoulder. There's, hey, you guys let us in the party. We might come crash it.
We might come crashing that party. And you know what? I can see that because he said something, and one of the reporters, he said, we get in, he's like, we can beat anybody. He's like, that's why you play the game. He's like, we look at college football this year. He's like, anybody can beat anybody, and you got a chance. He said, so why not us? We can go somewhere and beat somebody. He says, we're not worried about that.
He said he'd love to play South Carolina again, anywhere.
Yeah.
Love to play him in Atlanta for a
Yeah.
national championship.
I would be all for that.
How about that?
Wouldn't that be something to see?
With Sammy Brown on the field in the fourth quarter.
As long as
And
Sammy
the
Brown's
first,
on the
and the
field,
second,
Dabo,
and the
as
third.
long as Sammy Brown is on the field, but no, he was very loose today,
Very,
which
very
is
loose.
generally
Yeah,
a good
very.
sign for Clemson going into a game. A very good sign for Clemson.
That might be as chipper as he's been all year.
Yeah.
Well, talk a little bit about what you heard from Wade.
He he talked about his injury. Showed off. He didn't do it on camera. He showed off his picture of the bruise of his leg and talked about the hurt from the South Carolina game and the pain that he experienced personally, and using that as motivation and stuff. You know, it sounds like they quickly have turned the page from South Carolina. You know, they were down in the dumps Saturday after that game, and then once they realized they were a lot to go to Charlotte, man, it sounds like it was just like kind of like flipping the switch, and they're full steam ahead, and that's what you want to hear.
Well, and somebody asked, I think a follow up to him on the, you know, it's the third time the charm. Twice now they have failed when they have controlled their own destiny to control it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Lost the Louisville game when you had it under control, you controlled it. Lost the South Carolina game when you probably controlled it. This is it.
They win one of those two games, they're probably win or lose or in the playoffs. You know, that's kind of how it goes. So yeah, this is it now. Now this is their literally the third strike and you're out. So you either get a base hit and keep the season going, or you strike out.
How about we could just get grand slams?
Well, the grand slam's got to happen when you win the national championship, I think. But right now, you just want to get a base hit and win the ACC, and you're in the playoffs, and then you see what happens after that. Whether it's a road playoff game or whether it's you're getting a bye, which Clemson needs a bye desperately from a Hill standpoint. They're getting better shape than they were, but to just get better, they've played in the last month of the season. They've played 3 very physical football games, with starting off with Louisville, and then the Pittsburgh game. Well, actually 4. Virginia Tech was physical, and then South Carolina. So they played 4 very physical football games in the last month, and they need a rest back.
Well, the bye is a huge advantage. One thing, there's just so much parity. There's not going to be a whole lot of difference between the number 1 and number 12 team in the playoffs.
There's not.
Let me throw this at you.
Okay,
3 years in a row, Clemson has not shown up after a bye.
Yeah.
3 years in a row.
That's a good point too.
I mean,
so you're saying they play. You're saying let them
I
keep
can
playing.
see both sides.
Right.
I mean, it's they went up there to South Bend in 2022 after a bye and got punked. They went down to Miami last year after a bye and got beat, and then it happened on their home field this year. I mean, I guess you could point back to App State, and I think it was App State they played after a bye this
that's a
year,
little different.
or North Carolina State, one of them.
Yeah, NC State.
And they, smoked them. But there's been several instances of them not playing their best ball coming off of a bye week. So it's something to think about.
Well, but this time though, if they come off technically there'll be a bye in between the playoff, even if they're in the at-large playoff.
Yeah, this is a little bit more of an extended break.
Because that would be December 20th or 21st. And the interesting thing is, who they could play in those games. Like we talked about this the other day. If they don't get in the bye situation to the quarterfinals, they could potentially play either at Notre Dame or at Oregon.
In the snow.
That's really probably because Clemson would be the 12 in this scenario. I don't see any other way they wouldn't be. And so Clemson would be the 12, and they would have to go play in those games. Now, you mentioned maybe they could move up to number 11 if something else happens, and that's possible. Then you're not getting either one of those teams. You're getting the 6th seed in there. So,
But the 5, 6, 7, those teams are going to be really good teams because those are the first 3 teams outside of the buys.
Right.
I mean, Clemson could legitimately end up being as you said, if UNLV won and then they finish ahead of the Big 12, they could end up being the number 3 seed. How's that going to piss people off?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to piss a lot of people off.
Especially in Columbia.
Dabo talked about that today. Somebody asked him, do you think South Carolina should get in the playoffs? And he said, well, I don't know. He's like, this is the rules. This is what they said. And
Did you notice his answer on that today was a little different than his answer Saturday night?
Yes, it was.
Right? Wasn't it a little different?
Yeah, it was a little different. Saturday night, he was basically,
He's like, oh, dang gum, they just beat our butt. They deserve to be in there today. He's like, well, I don't know. That's just...
that's how the rules
system
go.
is the system.
Yeah. But it's, you got to keep an eye out. I know you don't as much, and I understand it, but I'd rather play Clemson play Penn State or Notre Dame than have to go play Oregon. I think Oregon would be
I don't want to go to Oregon either.
I mean,
my wallet doesn't.
No, I know your wallet definitely doesn't. But, I just think, when you look at those matchups, I mean, Clemson's not on the good side of none of them. But I do like their chances because I just think Clemson can play the style that Notre Dame and Penn State play. I don't think they can play the style.
I don't want nothing to do with Notre Dame. That wound is still too fresh. Penn State would be okay.
I think they match up pretty well with Penn State.
I think they match up with Penn State well, and I think they match up with Notre Dame well.
But what we want is we want to get that bye and play one of those teams in Atlanta. The first time in Atlanta.
That would be better.
That's exactly what you want.
That's what you want.
Except Oregon, because Oregon would then be the number 1 seed. You don't got to mess with them unless you go play for a national championship.
Well, I don't think
in Atlanta, where all your fans would be there.
I'm not sure Oregon's going to beat Penn State. We'll see.
Man,
we will see.
Man,
we will see.
I hope not. Man, I don't want to go to Oregon. Eugene, Oregon.
No, I'm just talking about. I mean, hopefully, still play them in the Chick-fil-A Bowl.
But mainly what we're saying here is go running Rebels.
Go running Rebels. And Clemson, for the third time, can you finally
get it done?
Play your best game?
Because there's media people that have never been to the playoffs. They were asking me about it on the way into the building today, what it's like, how the interviews work.
This guy here.
Yeah, so they love to see this. So Clemson, do it for Jason and do it for other guys in the media that haven't been there. Me and Robert would like to see it again, too, because we just like to see it again.
Well, do it for Clemson Nation, because everybody would like to see it.
Right, exactly.
We're going to break down, we're going to wait and do our prediction video. You guys look for that Friday night. We're actually going to do that from Bank of America Stadium on Friday and bring that to you a little bit live, so to speak. But I think we all feel like Clemson might be ready to crash that party.
I tell you, probably of the teams that got in, I think SMU probably rather played Miami.
You can bank on that.
Yeah.
This team's going to be angry. We're getting guys. Well, let's talk about that.
Getting guys healthy.
K-Park came back.
Yeah.
We watched that. Hopefully you followed our coverage on that Saturday. Saw him out there working a little bit with the trainer and then starting to do everything. It's like he's going to play. Yeah. Lewis is going to be back, it sounds like. Yeah. I don't know if Jones is going to play, but he's at least practicing a little bit, and they're hoping maybe more today and tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But, Clemson's going to be a little bit healthier.
Tyler Brown.
Yes, Brown. So they might be putting the best team together health-wise and anger-wise than they've had in the
Dabo said today that Shelton's healthier as he's been since fall camp.
And that's a huge difference.
And it's a game like this, especially because Clemson matches up better at this team than they do the team they played last weekend. Because this team doesn't have Cam Newton 2.0. So though their quarterback's hard to tackle for a different reason.
He's hard to tackle. He's more shifty and faster.
Faster, exactly.
Again, Sammy Brown would be a great answer to that situation. But let's just hope that Clemson plays their best game of the year. If they do, it's going to be exciting. We're going to have a ton of coverage all weekend long. We have a ton of folks headed to Charlotte to cover this game. So we're going to have every little morsel that you can think of covered. And hopefully Will and I are tired as crap come Sunday, driving all the way back after the game to make sure we're here to provide full coverage on Sunday as we go through a playoff scenario and where they're going and all of that stuff. So, we were hoping coming in the season we'd be able to be back in the playoff.
Yeah.
Not quite the path any of us would have necessarily predicted, but it's win Saturday and you're in that playoff.
It's all right there in front of them.
It's right there. All they got to do is win and they're in, and then when you get in the dance, you never know what's going to happen. The Dabo mentioned today, talking about wild card teams. They come out in the NFL playoff, they come out and win Super Bowls. It's all about how you're playing at the end of the year together as a team. Everybody's got injuries. Everybody has guys banged up, not playing 100%. It's the teams that can run the football and play defense. Those are the teams that are going to win.
And stop the run, that's the problem.
Stop the run, that's the problem. But again, you're not going to see that guy.
It hasn't been just that guy, Will.
Clemson stopped their running back. Rocket Sanders didn't do much against Clemson. So
how'd the Citadel do?
Well, but
how did Louisville do? Clemson's running defense this year has been way below par.
I don't disagree, but
I thought after Louisville, the run defense was good against Virginia Tech. It was good in the first half versus Pitt, and then the offense kind of hung them out to dry in the second half. But but then against Citadel,
Horrible.
it was terrible. But you're also playing against triple option. You don't never practice for it.
And guys were making business decisions when they're trying to cut block. The guys like, I'm not going to deal with that. I'll just let them go.
As Dabo said, it's 0-0. None of that stuff matters. Nobody gets to carry a touchdown lead into the postseason. So,
and that's the great.
It don't
message
matter
to
what
send
you
his team.
did.
That's a great message to send to his team, because
that message he gave today, that wasn't just to the media.
No,
That was he was speaking to.
he's speaking to his team.
Yes.
There's no doubt. And listen, remember, LSU a few years ago sucked going into the playoffs. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't do anything. Remember? When they got in the playoffs, LSU was pretty doggone good at stopping the run.
You got to bring that up.
Well, I know, but that happened. It's a good memory for Clemson fans to happen. A lot of people thought Clemson would be able to do things against LSU's defense that they weren't able to do in that game, because LSU's defense stepped up and played better when it mattered the most, and that's what mattered. Clemson has the talent to slow people down, and they proved that sort of against South Carolina. They held them 17 points. South Carolina team that scored 44 against A&M. Keep in mind, Clemson held them 17 points. As you just said, JP, the second worst output of the season. The defense can play well.
Having Capehart back, he'll be a little bit healthier this week. Woodaz will be certainly healthier this week.
Yep.
Lewis, as you mentioned, is back. It's healthy. It's been
hopefully you get Mickens back.
Mickens is huge.
Mickens is a question.
So, like you say, they have the talent, especially on the starting 11, to cause some problems.
Yeah.
And this week, guess what? You don't have to save anybody. You don't have to worry about the next week. It's four
All
quarters,
hands on
all
deck.
hands on decks. Guys need to play 4 quarters. Guess what? You better step up and do it.
Better do it. And by the way, I'm just going to mention this. Tyler Brown coming back to the offense. A healthy Tyler Brown, 100% Tyler Brown, which is what he's going to be. That's a huge deal. Because Tyler Brown, people forget, he's a playmaker.
Freshman All-American.
Yeah, he's a freshman All-American.
But you think he's going to be 100%?
Yes. Why wouldn't he be? He ain't played in 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
Well, but from the injury, is he going to be?
Yes.
Dabo said he kind of
I don't
ran
think
around
he-
a little bit yesterday. He hadn't even really practiced
I wouldn't
yet.
think he would play if he wouldn't. If he plays this week, I wouldn't think he's playing if he's not 100%. I think he'll be 100%. Just like Sheldon Lewis 100%. Almost the same surgery.
At the very least, he should be close to it at the very
Yeah.
least. I mean, it's been since Florida State. He had it right after that, right?
Yeah, right after Florida State. So he's been 6 weeks, man. It should be 100%. Now I know everybody's different how they heal and all, but if he's getting back into where Dabo's saying he probably can play, then I can't imagine why he wouldn't be 100%. Why would they let him if he wouldn't?
He might have been 100% last week, week 4
Yeah.
last, and
Well,
they just said, well, he's
let's
missed so
say
much time. Let's just
As
let's
we've
just save him-
learned,
let's
and
save
as
that
we
year.
know, Dabo's kind of okey doke some things. Did we hear him last week talking about Gay Park?
He wasn't even on the
Anybody,
depth chart.
anybody here worried about Gay Park last
No,
week?
I didn't-
Dabo said
No.
he didn't
So-
practice on Monday.
So
I didn't give Capehart any shot at playing.
And that's the reason I said that, because he was like, well, he kind of ran around Brown at practice yesterday. Brown might have been out there practicing full gore.
maybe
yesterday.
diving, catching passes.
Yeah, he might have been 100% yesterday. Just
Little-
wow,
little
and
gamesmanship
Dabo's
there.
not going to
Yeah, little
say
games
that.
because Tyler Brown gives you another weapon, and Tyler Brown and Cade already had that connection beforehand because last year. So that's a big deal when you got Antonio Williams, you got Tyler Brown, you got these 2 freshman receivers are doing their thing. You got 4 of the targets, and then if Brenny Steele will just show up. I mean, you have a chance.
That's a big boost. Getting him back, that is a big boost for an offense that just really been explosive at times, but is just still trying to take that last step and find its way to be able to play with some consistency.
And
Earlier in the year, we thought the Clemson offense was back. We
Yeah.
saw that for a few games. The last 4,
we haven't seen
5
that since
games,
Louisville
we
game.
hadn't seen it. So if we can get back to that, Clemson will be in good shape.
And part of it is no coincidence. You haven't seen it when Phil Moffitt got banged up, which was in the Louisville game. He started getting banged up again. It really showed, and he hadn't really been the same since.
Well, and that's the problem is he's still banged up. He's
He
not
is.
going to be better.
So
until he
what I
has
think
surgery.
I'd rather they just sit Phil and maybe rest him and get him rested in case
See
and
Haynes
play
more.
Haynes and Adams more.
The fact that those guys have played so little while he's been banged up tells me they just don't trust those guys.
It must not.
There's
No, I agree
there's
with
no other explanation on them.
Because why didn't I would put Adams in and let's see, maybe he's fumbling the ball because he has fumbled a couple times.
I have
in
heard
practice.
that Haynes has had some fumbling issues in practice.
That's-
I've heard
Well,
that.
in
That's big.
last game, you would have been concerned about pass pro,
Correct.
right? With
Yeah.
that
You'd be
defensive
worried.
line South Carolina had.
You'd be worried about it in this game too.
Yeah, in this
If
game
you
too, they
said,
got some big defensive linemen. Well, that's why he got taken out. Remember, he I can't remember his third quarter. He's sitting there and he's in pass pro and he takes off early, his false start, because he was gonna have to go up against number 5. Okay. It was obvious.
And one more plea, and then we're out of here. No trick plays this week.
Yes, no.
Just
please.
go run your stuff. It'll work. You don't need to do this trick stuff that halftime ends up in turnovers. So just run your normal game and
just go out there and beat Clemson football.
Beat the other team up front and win the game.
Can we say that? If they're just Clemson football and they play Clemson football, that we know what Clemson football is, they win this game. Well, because SMU is not yet there. Clemson has been.
Play the Clemson football that we've seen a little bit this year, but we haven't really seen the last few years. Let's see that.
Exactly.
All right, guys.
We can talk 4 quarters.
4 quarters. We could talk for hours. We'll talk some more Friday. Stay tuned to Clemson Insider for the most complete coverage of Clemson football, Clemson athletics, and Clemson recruiting.
This is Miles Murphy. Make sure to check out Clemson Insider's most complete football coverage. Nobody does it better.